So 4 things about me you need to know. My name is Angel. I am obsessed about using culture to educate. Second thing you need to know about me is I brought buttons. So I got 99 problems, but a fish ain't me. In cybersecurity, the few, the proud, the paranoid. I have a few. You can have them, but you have to give me your best dad joke. Okay? All right. All right. Third thing you know about me is TikTok almost made me lose my job. But we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so pulse check, this is a safe space. Raise your hand if you've ever created a brilliant security awareness campaign only for it to flop somewhere unexpected. Safe space, okay. Yep, same. Yep. Shout out to you, brave souls who raised your hand, and shout out to those of you who wanted to but didn't want to, but were afraid to. It's okay. But now let's talk about my own flop story. Picture it. I'm designing a brilliant TikTok-style educational campaign, metrics tight, stakeholder engaged, aligned, and my very shy India-based director report, Arvind, I know you're watching, hi Arvind. He says, you know TikTok is banned in India, right? What do you mean? What do you mean it's banned? I have a whole campaign about TikTok and it's not even in the culture. So that's my flop story. Luckily, we were able to pivot and do something completely different. However, as you can see, cultural assumptions can tank great ideas. And before we go any further, culture is not a monolith. It's not. This conversation is about curiosity, not making assumptions. And so cultural anthropologist Sir Edward Tyler, who's the father of modern cultural anthropology, defines culture as a complex whole of knowledge, beliefs, and customs. If we want to understand behavior and, of course, influence behavior, which is why we're all here, we can't just look at the surface, right? We have to look at all the invisible layers in mind. And so after leading programs, I realized really quickly that what works in one region can completely tank in another region. And the difference is always context. So I created the LAND framework for cultural content creation. I also like alliteration, sorry. It's learn the culture, adapt the messaging, network with local champions, and dismantle stereotypes. So step 1 is learn the culture. Audit your audience. Now, I'm a former auditor, so the A word doesn't scare me, but I get if we have some folks that have some compliance work to do, hearing that word freaks you out, I get it. But in this context, it's okay. So you wanna learn the culture. So how do you do that? You can use cultural comparison surveys. You can actually have conversations with your actual audience, tap local insights, and maybe check the tech. Something that I apparently didn't do, because if I would have said, hey, what social media is used in India, I would have not made that mistake. Also, review your metrics. See what areas you have to improve and identify those gaps to try to, enhance that culture in that way. So I want to share this cool tool. It's the culture factor country comparison. It is built off Hofstede's 6-dimensional model of culture, and it shows how values shape behavior and communication across countries. So there are 6 categories: power, distance, individualism, motivation, uncertainty, avoidance, orientation, and indulgence. So comparing the US to India, for example, you see that the power dynamics or distribution of power varies greatly. So that may impact how you want to educate that particular audience based on that. Now, this is research-based, but lived experience is always better than a tool like this, right? So you need to be able to have these conversations as a starting point. This is not intended to be gospel. It's intended to help you drive the conversation. All right, so the next component of the LAND framework is adapt the messaging. Now, I know if you are lucky enough to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of budget, you can do all of the things all the time, right? Most of us can't. So what I'm asking you to consider is not to create 15 separate campaigns, create one and just sort of adapt the messaging. So in this example, we had a fishing, the topic was fishing. In the US, we had a fishing quiz with leaderboards because US-based cultures like competition. In Mexico, we had a fishing bingo, again, cultural things. In India, we had a fishing group game. So group connection tends to work in India-based areas. Again, you shift the tone, keep the same context. All right, the next part of the framework is network with local champions. I know that as security awareness professionals, we are passionate about what we talk about, and we want to believe that our voice is the strongest voice in the room when it's time to influence culture. It's not, I'm sorry. It's not. So what do? You network with local champions. So that means partnering with your ERGs, your local and regional leaders, HR commerce marketing specialists. And if you have campaigns, again, this framework is flexible. So it's not just for security awareness, but educating just about any audience, right? So if you have community champions you can engage with, universities, nonprofits, et cetera, content creators, these are the people that help drive your message. And speaking of content, there is a difference between translation versus localization. Translation is just literally translating one item in one language to another. Localization takes context into mind as you're designing programs. So you want to localize your content, not just throw it through a translator and move forward. All right, and last, the arguably probably most difficult portion of this framework is dismantle stereotypes. Let's avoid lazy tropes like sombreros, right? Avoid those tropes. Reputation without context or authenticity reinforces stereotypes, and we don't want to do that. We have all seen campaigns that weren't maybe brilliantly executed. An example of this recently, American Eagle, Sweeney. I'm just saying, just Google it, you know what I'm talking about. And we also don't want to confuse translation with cultural understanding. And to quote rapper Ice Cube, check yourself and your biases before you wreck your campaign and possibly your career, right? Ask, would this feel respectful if it were about my culture? And then again, as I mentioned, lived experiences always matter more, right? So validate that content with people from the culture represented, although recognizing that culture, again, is not a monolith. So in this next section, I'm going to give you a few examples about how to do this, right? So the US campaign example, gamify to win. So the culture traits based on the hierarchy model, low power distance, high individualism, future-oriented, and task-first communication. So what's in it for me? So of course, our messaging style would be to use gamification, like leaderboards, badges, and friendly competition. Make messages correct, direct and concise. And again, you always want to highlight the personal wins and why should I do this? Security awareness is a challenging field because we are asking people to do their day jobs in addition to this other thing. And so if you can't get people to understand why it's important, you may lose your audience. And so a sample campaign will be, again, a secure coding training. Teams earn points and prizes for completing secure coding challenges, and they were rising up the leaderboard. Now, one thing that's consistent with any culture is everybody loves to win a game and for prizes. Everybody loves gifts. So that's the one thing I will say is consistent across most cultures. Most people like gifts. All right, so this is the India-based campaign. And that's a real picture. I took that picture. So the culture traits for India is high power distance, collectivist, long-term orientation, and a formal tone is preferred. So for the messaging style for this, what you want to do is secure buy-in by having leadership amplify your messaging and your programming. Use storytelling and metaphors familiar to that region, and just make it team-based. The sample campaign here was Secure Together. Groups navigated challenging security scenarios together, and training completion was celebrated from recognition from department heads. Lastly, Latin America. So culturally, high context, relational communication, present focused, emotionally expressive, and relationship first. The messaging style, you want to use narratives tied to that local custom and celebration. And also you want to highlight how behavior impacts family and community. For this campaign, we partnered with the Hispanic Heritage ERG and had a cybersecurity loteria. And it was a bingo game. It was about cybersecurity, but it was fun and contextualized for that group. And we also included native Spanish-speaking translation for the speakers. All right, so as a summary, we want to learn the culture, adapt the messaging, network with local champions, and dismantle stereotypes. Because ultimately, when you land the message, you build with, not above your audience. Thank you.